Hello there, I'm Flintworth and welcome to Creature Creator, the show where I help you build monsters and encounters inspired by your favorite characters. Today we are going back to the 90s to go and create our own murder mystery inspired by the infamous masked killer from the Scream franchise, Ghostface.
0933, 632.
Make mommy proud, Jason.
Be my victim. Stop right there and surrender.
Ghostface first appeared on the silver screen back in the 90s, at a time when most slasher films had become a bit stuck in their ways and way too formulaic. This resulted in a flood of unneeded sequels and uninvented killers at the box office. Fortunately, this was all soon to change after director Wes Craven teamed up with writer Kevin Williamson to produce Scream in 1996. Unlike the brain-dead morons that stumbled to their doom in other movies, Craven and Williamson filled Scream with characters that the audiences could relate to by making them avid horror fans as well. This created many refreshing moments for characters like movie geek Randy to openly criticize the rules or cliches of past horror films, or even allow other characters other than the final girl Sydney to actually be able to outsmart the killer. Needless to say, this approach was received well by audiences and critics alike, as the Scream franchise now sits with a TV series and 4 sequels, including a 6th one already planned to film this summer based on the box office returns from the 5th installment last January. Naturally, being a fan myself, I couldn't help but be inspired by this recent string of successes. I simply had to work out a way to bring Ghostface to your games. But that's where I hit a bit of a snag. See, what makes Ghostface unique is not their stats, but the mystery behind their identity. Which is why I didn't see the point of putting together a custom stat block. The one for assassins in the monster manual already fits the character perfectly. So instead, I decided to create my own Scream murder mystery, and even went about writing a freaking module for you all to use, which you can use the link down below to download for free. Regardless of whether you follow that module is up to you, but at least let me walk you through it, because I think a few of my design choices will be very handy when you plan your own Scream slasher. For starters, to run my game, you'll need the 5th edition versions of the Dungeons & Dragons Player's Handbook, Dungeon Master's Guide, and the Monster Manual from Wizards of the Coast. These books will be useful if you draw in any first-time players to your Scream game, because frankly the 5th edition system is quite easy to pick up. Additionally, you will also need to download a copy of the Camp Murder Player's Handbook by BJ Hypes. Camp Murder is another great homebrew resource that you can use to create games inspired by slasher films. Its section on character creation already does a fantastic job of translating D&D classes to high school archetypes. Any attempts to try and recreate Hype's work would be nothing but a pale imitation on my part. So grabbing a copy of that handbook from his site is a must. Just do him a favor while you're there to check out his other products. The guy definitely deserves your support. As for the map, I was inspired by the house at the end of the first film and wanted to do my best to recreate many of the familiar set pieces, like putting in a 2-story home, a tool shed or garage, or even a wrecked car in the woods. The key thing you want to achieve is recreating this sense of isolation that was so perfectly set up and established in the first film. Although I'd recommend to include plenty of spots to hide for not only your player characters, but your NPCs alike. Speaking of which, my game was designed for a party of 4 level 1 player characters and 7 non-playable characters, mirroring the 4 survivors and 7 victims in Scream. I should note going forward that what matters is not us trying to perfectly recreate the kill count of the first film, but rather we want to recreate the same feelings and setups. Creating these clear similarities will ultimately be your greatest asset, for they offer the perfect opportunity to subvert your players' expectations on how things will play out. For instance, my module is designed with 2 killers in mind, just like, spoiler alert, Billy and Stu in Scream. a clearly unhinged mastermind working with an impressionable accomplice. While the identity of my mastermind is set, I intentionally left that of the accomplices up in the air, allowing you to determine it based on how your players are going through the module and their own suspicions. You see, the hardest part of running any murder mystery game is that players go in expecting there to be a murderer. From the get-go, they'll be on the lookout for anyone suspicious, which makes it very difficult to keep your twists from being discovered too soon. Rather than trying to hide the fact there are two killers, we're going to acknowledge it by making everyone a possible suspect and set a few scenes that, if you play your cards right, your players would be so caught up wondering if they actually caught your accomplice in the act that they won't be prepared to learn the identity of the mastermind at the end of the game. And even if they do start to see things coming, you can include other game elements to stir up their paranoia to keep them off the scent. For example, in my module, I give a moment where players can be given a secret role, implying that one of them could be a traitor themselves, removing any certainty that they are completely safe together. The last important details to go over will be the sequence of your game's events. Every good story has a 3-act structure, and my game is no different. Your first act will be one, namely, of introductions, a chance for your players to learn about each other, the setting, and the other characters who inhabit it. Make sure to show as much as you can during this time, for it will be your players' primary chance to obtain vital clues and hints for later. My game achieves this by simply having the characters hang out at a party, offering the perfect chance for my players to get this tableau of information about the other characters' personalities, motivations, right before things hit the fan in Act 2. This part is where your game will be at its most chaotic, as your killers go about slicing and dicing their way through your cast of characters, forcing your players to do whatever they can to stay one step ahead of them. This is where my game shifts from solving a mystery to one of survival horror, as your players will now have to juggle searching for weapons, other survivors, all the while working out the ultimate plan the killers may have for them. This all leads into our third act, the finale, where dark secrets are revealed, the stakes are made clear, and a final battle is played out to determine who will make it out alive. Whether your players survive or the killers get away with it all, have fun with the epilogue. Give your players ample time to describe their final moments or throw out a few witty one-liners, right before you go and tease your players one last time with the promise of a sequel. Because what kind of storytellers would we be if we fail to follow the most important of lessons from our game's inspiration?
We're gonna carry on and plan the sequel, because let's face it, baby, these days, you gotta have a sequel.
Hey everyone, thanks for watching. This one was a bit more involved than I expected, so it means a lot to me you made it this far to the very end. Hope you enjoyed it. You could do me a favor by leaving a comment on what you'd like to see in future videos. Otherwise, it would also be pretty cool if you liked and subscribed. If not, no hard feelings. Take care.